Welcome to Commander Action, where we play games and have fun. And the real question is do you pay the one? Anyway, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to have a brand new game for you guys today in just a few minutes. First, I want to say thank you guys to all of you that are watching. It has been a huge support getting this. We have a brand new logo and emblem and stuff like that I'm really excited about. We're also trying a new editing style to show you guys what it's like. The next thing is that we're just going to be playing casual decks. I know I really didn't get to describe what this game channel was in our first video, but this is more of a casual formatted YouTube channel. What that is that my friends and I like to play higher powered casual, I guess is the best way to describe it. The video you're going to watch today is not really that high powered, but at the end there will be a bit of a breakdown of what happened at the end and what gave him the victory, making it a little bit easier for all of us. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you have any questions or comments or concerns or anything like that, leave a comment in the comment section. Give us a like, it helps a lot. And then if you like the video, feel free to subscribe. Yeah. And with that, let's begin the game. Donnie starts off by playing a Bloodstained Mire and passing the turn. Mason draws his card, plays a Flooded Strand, shortcutting the crack for a tropical island, losing 1 life, and playing a Fyntorn Elves, and passing the turn. Nick plays a Swamp, taps it, and plays a Soul Ring. I then draw, play a tapped Myriad Landscape, and pass the turn. Donnie cracks his Bloodstained Mire for a Blood Crypt, and then plays a Wooded Foothills. Mason plays an Island. Nick then plays a Plains, tapping for a Cryptghast. He passes the turn to me. I draw, play a Forest as my land for turn, tapping the Forest to play a Fyntorn Elves. I pass the turn to Donnie. Donnie plays an Urborg much to our demise, but decides to handle the Cryptghast for us, cracking his Wooded Foothills for a mountain, and then tapping his Blood Crypt for a black to go for the throat of the Cryptghast. So, quick thing here, I actually messed up the editing here and forgot to add the part where Mason plays an island. So, my bad, but he actually plays the island. Nick then plays Plains, tapping 2 to attempt to cast a Hushbringer. Mason, not being a big fan of Hushbringer, decides to counterspell it, and Nick passes the turn to me. I play a Forest, and then tap 2 to activate my Myriad Landscape, cracking it, finding 2 forests, and then tapping my Fyntorn Elves to play a Scribe Sprite. I pass the turn to Donnie. Donnie taps 3 and plays an Azra Oddsmaker. He then passes the turn to Mason. Mason plays Reliquary Tower, tapping 5 to play his commander Imoti. With the Cascades trigger on the stack, he reveals a Reality Shift. He then targets the Azra Oddsmaker and passes the turn to Nick. Nick draws, plays a Reliquary Tower of his own, and then taps 5 to play his commander Liesa. He then passes the turn. I tap and play a Mosswort Bridge, doing the Hideaway trigger. I then tap 4, losing 2 life, to play Toski. I then pass the turn. I then move to combat, swinging 1 in the air at Mason, and thanks to Toski's trigger, I draw a card. I then tap 1 mana for my Fyntorn Elves and play a Llanowar Mentor. I pass the turn to Donnie. Donnie goes straight to combat and swings 2 with his Manifest token at Mason. He then plays a Forbidden Orchard. We discuss who Donnie is going to give the token to, and he decides to give me the 1/1 Spirit with his Forbidden Orchard, trying to decide who would be the best person. He then casts Rakdos and passes the turn. Mason taps his Reliquary Tower and 2 more, plus Fyntorn Elves, to play a Fact or Fiction. I make the piles of the Great Henge and of Mana Vault, an island, and a Prismatic Vista. He takes the Mana Vault, Prismatic Vista, and island, losing 2 life, playing an island as land for turn. And passes in the turn. Nick plays a Plains as a land drop for turn, tapping 3 black thanks to the Urborg, and plays a Necropotence. He then decides that he's going to swing 5 in the air at Mason with his commander to gain 5 extra life, putting him at 43. He then decides how much life he wants to take away, and he ends up settling on playing a Talisman of Hierarchy, losing 2 life thanks to Liesa, and then he decides to pay 15 life, drawing 15 cards thanks to Necropotence. I go to my turn, play a Forest. I tap 3 to play a Green Weaver Druid. I then move to combat, and since Nick is completely open, I swing 4 out of my 6 creatures at him. He takes the 4 damage, and I draw 4 cards thanks to Toski's ability. And then tap 2 to play a Helm. That gives my creatures +1/+1 and trample if I equip it to them. I pass the turn to Donnie. Donnie plays nothing and passes the turn. Mason then plays a Karn's Temporal Sundering with the Cascade trigger on the stack. Cascade trigger, he gets nothing, and then decides to move on, bouncing Liesa, playing a Mana Vault, and then untapping for his second turn. He plays a Polluted Delta, and then casts a Prime Speaker Zagana, drawing himself 3 cards, going into Cascade, and getting a Pull from Tomorrow, where he decides not to cast. Prime Speaker Zagana enters with 3 +1/+1 counters, and he draws 4 cards. Nick untaps and decides to go and play Damnation. Mason thinks he has a response and taps 2 to play a Heroic Intervention, trying to give his creatures indestructible and hexproof. Nick has something else in mind though. Nick taps 2, using 1 white and 1 black thanks to Urborg, and casts a Despark on Imoti. The Despark goes through, and then we have the Heroic Intervention trigger, and then the Damnation goes through. Nick then taps to play a Drain Flash, pretty much shutting down Rakdos and Imoti. It goes to my turn. I play a Forest, tapping for a Bow of Mana, then tap 2, and tap Bow of Mana to creatures in my graveyard thanks to the Damnation at the bottom of the library. I then tap 1 to equip Toski with the Helm, giving him +1/+1 and trample. And then move to combat, swinging 2 at Nick with Death Touch. He takes the 2 damage, I draw my card, and he will play an Arbor Oak, and pass the turn to Donnie. Donnie taps 2 and plays a Knight's Whisper, using 2 life, drawing 2 cards. Mason plays a Castle Break, and thinks about his plays. He plays a Reoccurring Insight, targeting Nick, drawing him 13 cards. On his end step, Donnie Chaos Warps Dranic Magistrate. Dranic Magistrate gets shuffled in, and Nick reveals an Ethereal Absolution, giving all creatures -1/-1, really hosing my board. Nick plays a Swamp, and then plays an Aura of Silence, making enchantments costing 2 more. He then taps 3 to play Commander Sphere. He then taps 5 to play Liesa from his hand and passes the turn. Mason, in response to the Liesa, decides to delay it, either exiling it or putting it in the command zone. Nick accepts the command zone, and then as his land for turn, plays an Orzhov Basilica, bouncing a swamp back to his hand. I play a forest as my land for turn, tapping 2 to play a Shaman. I then swing at Nick again for 2, but thanks to the Ethereal Absolution, making it 1, and I draw my card to Toski. I then pass my turn. Donnie taps 2 to play the Demonic Tutor. He goes and finds a Cabal Coffers as his land for turn. He then pays 4 mana for a Shrine. Realizing that he has to pay 4 mana for the Shrine, so he taps the Cabal Coffers, giving him 2 extra black mana, and then moving on from there. Mason takes 1 from his mana vault and decides to target Nick again with the reoccurring insight, drawing 11 cards, 10 from Nick's hand and 1 from his draw step. Mason repeats. Small prices for turn. He then slowly thinks about what he's going to do, and decides to cast a Flood of Tears, returning all non-mana permanents to their owner's hands. Mason is extremely upset about this one, because he has nothing to put back out due to Flood of Tears' second ability. He taps 1 to play the Mana Vault again, he then taps 2 to play an Arcane Signet. Nick's turn and plays a Plains. Nick taps 3 mana for a Talisman of Hierarchy and a Soul Ring. He then taps a Soul Ring for a Felwar Stone, and then taps the Talisman of Hierarchy and 2 other lands for a Commander Sphere. Nick then recasts Aura of Silence, and then followed by a Blind Obedience. He passes the turn. I untap, play a Forest as my land for turn, and then play my Shaman again. I then go cast Lost Viper. After casting Lost Viper, I then tap enough to play Toski again, and a Treetop Ranger. After that, I pass the turn. Donnie taps 4 and plays a Seasoned Pyromancer, discarding 2 cards and drawing 2 cards. He then decides if he wants to do anything and creates his token, thanks to the Seasoned Pyromancer. Passes the turn to Mason. Mason, on his end step, Nature's claims the Aura of Silence. Nick, in response, cracks the Aura of Silence to destroy the Mana Vault. And then Mason untaps, playing a Rejuvenating Spring. Since he has more than 2 opponents, it enters untapped. Mason then goes and casts Imoti again. Entering tapped due to Blind Obedience, he has a Cascade trigger, getting a Nature's Lore. Mason finds a Force and then plays an Liesa and carry a 10. He then passes the turn to Nick. Nick plays a Swamp and then attempts to cast a Grand Abolisher. Mason doesn't like the idea of Grand Abolisher and Arcane denials it. Nick then casts Ethereal Absolution, and me being a very sad boy, all of my creatures died to getting -1/-1. After the board's been wiped clean, he plays the Black Court and becomes the Monarch. On his end step, Mason then destroys the Ethereum Absolution with a Return to Nature. I play a Forest as my land for turn, and then go to cast a Magus of the Library, entering tapped. I then play Toski again, which also enters tapped. I also play the Helm again, and then go to equip the Helm onto Toski to make sure that he gets +1/+1 and trample. I pass the turn to Donnie. Donnie plays a Swamp. Donnie then taps his Cabal Coffers using Urborg to generate 8 black mana. He uses one of the red mana he has to play a Sneak Attack. He then Sneak Attacks out a Ulamog of the Infinite Gyre. He then Sneak Attacks out Razakath. He sacrifices Ulamog to Razakath's ability, stacking the triggers so that he gets to shuffle his graveyard into his library first and then search. He then plays a Cloudstone Curio. Mason then tries to find an answer using Dig Through Time and cannot find anything that will save us instantly. Donnie then plays a Dockside Extortionist, creating 8 treasures. He then attacks Nick for 2, becoming the Monarch, also having him causing damage, which allows him to cast Rakdos. He uses his treasures to cast Rakdos. With the Cloudstone Curio ability on the stack, he returns Dockside Extortionist to his hand. He then recasts Dockside Extortionist, creating more treasures, choosing to return nothing to his hand. He then sacks the Sorcerer to Razakath, the Tutor, finding Purphoros, and then ending the game.
Game over.
So, breakdown at the end of the game here, why I put the KO and the game over sound effect. Donnie had this really weird Rube Goldberg machine going, so I'm just going to break it down real quick. Sneak Attack lets him put something out from his hand for 1 red mana. After he had casted Dockside Extortionist, what he could do is play his commander, bouncing Dockside back. After casting Dockside, he could use Sneak Attack to put Dockside back out and then bounce his commander or whoever he chose back to his hand using the Cloudstone Curio effect. After that, it would just become an infinite loop. He ends up tutoring using Razakath to find a Purphoros, and then with that effect, he just ends up killing us because of the Purphoros 2 damage on the Enter the Battlefield effect. So that's pretty much the breakdown of what happens at the end there. So that was our first game. I was really excited with how well the editing came out and my one little mistake. But overall, it was a great game. Play of the game definitely goes to the sneak attack. The sneak attack just enabled Donnie to win that game outright. Just being able to go, here's one mana, let me play my stuff. Here's another mana, let me play my stuff. And just being able to continuously do that. Sneak attack is definitely the MVP of that game. Nick had a fantastic stranglehold on the game most of the time where we were just wondering when we would be able to stop him. My deck really didn't get to do too much. You know, 1/1s. I love the deck. Toski is one of my favorite decks to play. It just didn't have the oomph that it needed this game. So, and then Mason's Imoti deck is just always fun to watch, especially when he drops a Karn's Temporal Sundering, cascades, and then continues to take his next turn. I think it is one of my favorite decks to watch play and personally play against. So, if you guys have any questions about the decks, we're going to talk about doing the deck lists in the description for the next video. I'm going to be doing a deck list next week, talking to Donnie about his Rakdos deck, Lord of Riots, and seeing where he made his decisions and where he didn't make his decisions. So, after all that, still getting used to this talking thing. After all that, I hope you guys had a great time watching the video. And again, remember,